is only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, good afternoon. Carl Robinger here. 540-0580. If you have a legal question, call in. We'll answer it here on the air. And we'll get you updated on what's going on around the world in the wonderful wide world of law. 540-0580. Divorce, custody, neighborhood dispute. I always want to know if your neighbor's fence can be taken down. One of my personal favorites are the old tree branches hanging over your yard. Whatever kind of legal question you might have. Been in an auto accident, want to know how a personal injury case works. Want to make sure you have the right kind of auto insurance. Call in. We'll talk about that. We've updated people on that before. Just make sure you're full tort. So no matter what your auto policy is and how little coverage you choose to carry, which you should always carry more rather than less, make sure you're at least full tort, and make sure you have uninsured, underinsured. Good policy at all times to make sure you have adequate insurance. I've heard people say, you can be overinsured, blah, blah, blah. You can't really be overinsured when you have a bad accident. And with the cost of medical bills these days, a small trip to the hospital through the trauma center can cost more than the average policy. So 540-0580. Jim, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing, Carl?
Good.
Hey, I received a traffic citations/summons in the mail, and it says the charge was limitations on driving on left side of roadway, and it says here defendant did drive on the left side of roadway while within 100 feet of an intersection while traveling intersection. Now,
okay,
this was filed on information received from another individual.
Okay.
And to my, I don't know when it happened. Well, I do know when because the cop told me, but is there any recourse? I mean, should I fight this or? Well,
in order for them to win it, they would have to bring in the person who saw you driving. They would have to testify and be believed beyond a reasonable doubt.
He's willing to do that according to the officer.
Well, of course the officer's going to tell you that.
Right.
You ever play poker?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, and I have two aces, so don't raise me.
Gotcha.
So the worst thing that can happen is you show up and they'll convict you of it. Best thing that can happen is you show up and the victim victim or witness in this case doesn't show up. And if they do show up, you give your side of the story, they give their side of the story, and the judge may still acquit you.
Right. Well, I'm a little concerned about the points that might.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a 2-point or a 3-point offense.
Is there? How do you go about, maybe speaking with the officer and having him lower the charge? Yeah,
you can have him change it to a no-point offense if that's a point offense.
Yeah, that's the main concern. I mean, if I did it, I was unaware of it. It's like, I passed cars already, that were turning, and I didn't just go zooming through.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what.
Well, one that I see people get in trouble for once in a while, though they don't really get in real trouble for it, but it's a summary citation. If you turn onto a one-way that has 2 lanes on it,
mm-hmm.
you've got to go into the lane that's closest to you, not the other side of the street. So if you watch people turn onto one-ways, a lot of times they turn to the right lane on the far side of it, let's say.
Yeah, they'll cross over.
But they're supposed to stay in the lane closest to them by statute. But almost nobody knows that.
They have to be coming out of a one-way also, correct?
If you're coming off a one-way onto a one-way, then you can turn on red too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll show up here and I guess see what he has to say.
Yeah,
maybe the officer won't even show up. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, and here's the answer. I would call, and this is I always laugh about this. Of course, when you call him, he's not going to hem and haw and say, "Well, I don't know if the guy's going to come around." He'll say, "Oh yeah, when I talked to him, he was willing." But let me explain. Just the same as it's a pain for you to show up for a stupid hearing like this.
Mm-hmm.
That's what goes through your head. This other guy who witnessed it, unless he's like, your ex-brother-in-law and just hates you,
right.
Is probably going to have the same go, oh, man, I can't miss work that day, da-da-da-da-da. So.
How about if I called him beforehand? Could he do anything beforehand, or is it something that's already this far gone and has to...
you guys could put it in place ahead of time, theoretically.
Okay.
And, of course, just remember anytime you're talking to the police officer, anything you say can and will be used against you. So if he starts quizzing you about the event.
Yeah. All right.
All right, brother.
Thanks, Carl.
Not a problem.
Appreciate it.
540-0580 is the talk line number. If you've got a question, you can come on the air here. We'll get it answered. With the summary citations, the biggest thing is if there are points involved, you do want to fight them. I've run into a lot of folks who never had a problem in their entire life. They haven't sped, they haven't got anything, and then they get 3 tickets in a 6-month period, and maybe 2 of them are for things that are really minor but carry some points, and it's not anything that was really their fault, let's say. Then they get the 3rd ticket, and then we've got to win it because they're going to have too many points and they're going to lose their license or they're going to get a suspension or their insurance is going to go through the roof. So you kind of have to preemptively plan with your traffic tickets to fight them. Now, if you can get a no-point offense out of the deal, a lot of times that's a better way to go because I get other people that are adamant, that they are not guilty and they're adamant that they did nothing wrong and they are adamant that they are not responsible for, go on and on and on and on. And they want a hearing, and the officer offers a no-point offense and the officer offers a, minimal fine. Once you take the hearing, all bets are off. And so sometimes even if you were right, taking the no-point offense is the better route. Now, that scales all the way up to major criminal cases. You can be charged with criminal homicide, believe you were defending yourself, but plead guilty to voluntary manslaughter for a year in prison to avoid a life sentence. So 540-0580. Sheila.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
What's going on?
Okay. I have a living will.
Okay.
And it was made in 2005.
Okay.
And everybody on that will has moved.
Okay.
So is it still good?
It's still good.
Put addresses on, or
it's still good, but what I would recommend doing is updating it just to be clear with everybody's new address. You could put a piece of paper with it that says this is where they've moved to.
Yeah, but do I have to put an address in it at all?
No.
If I just write their names.
Yeah, but the problem is, and I'll tell you what the problem is, when you need a living will, you're probably not going to be there to help me, okay? And so if I'm your doctor, I go, who is this person and how do I get a hold of them? So having a little bit of addressing information points me in the right direction.
Well, what I'm saying right now is the will I have now is my agents. I'm the individuals as my agents are my 3 children.
Okay, so we could figure out who they are.
Pardon me?
We could figure out who they are without their addresses.
Yeah, that's what I want to know because they do move around a lot.
Yeah.
And one of the witnesses is also has moved.
I wouldn't worry about where the witnesses are. Was it notarized?
No, it was just witness.
Okay. Getting one done with a notary stamp is always better because that solves any witness issues if anybody wants a witness.
Yeah, I know it. Well, I got this off the internet site. A blank one, which I could I just do that myself?
Well, you could. I mean, the short answer is you're probably, if you went to see a lawyer and you wanted to do a will and a living will and probably a power of attorney, you could get out for under $200.
Is that all?
Yeah.
It would be more.
Yeah,
Okay.
And so the reason I mention all that is you probably want to do that because it's good. The lawyer can go over just some other things with you, make sure, give you a little like oil change checkup kind of deal while you're there, and get everything just up nice and crisp and notarized.
Yeah.
And that'll solve any of those issues for you.
Okay, well, then I guess that answers my next question about my will,
Yeah.
which is 20 years old, and I want everything the same in there, except my son was 16 at the time, so I put my daughter as his trustee, but now he's 36, so I just want everything equally.
Right, and we probably, if it was written right, that language would not take effect because he's reached the age of majority at this point. But it's something I'd still want to see the will and make sure. And number 2, just cleaning it up and doing it recently has one other important effect, and people forget about this. When you pass away, and I don't know what your relationship between your kids is or isn't, but let's imagine that one of them goes, Mom always said that she was going to give me, blah, 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 blah. Well,
I have one daughter like that, but yeah, that's
right.
Okay.
Now the will's 30 years old, right? So one
20.
of them goes, here's what one of them's.
No, it's 20 years.
Well, I know, I'm just giving you a hypothetical. But
okay.
And one of the kids goes, oh, Mom updated that will. I know she updated that will, so somebody's hiding the new will. Well, there's no new will, but they don't believe that because they thought you said you were going to do something, or they claim you're going to do something. So having a new current will, sometimes it's only a couple years old, prevents those kinds of fights.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, then I guess I will. That's what I thought it was, but I thought maybe the living will I could do myself.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to get a will done, get the living will done with the lawyer at the same time because it's an easy add-on.
Right.
All right. I got to go to break.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
540-0580. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Talk line number, answering your legal questions. Jim, you're on the air.
Hello. I am moving here to Pennsylvania from Indiana, and we don't have the tort deal, the choice. And I don't understand what they tell me. I pay $70 more for full tort.
I'll give you the difference here. The difference is in whether or not you can recover for pain and suffering if you have a serious impairment, basically serious bodily injury that results in a significant and permanent impairment. So, or the loss of an organ or a limb. But the nightmare scenario that we see, and it's not even really a nightmare scenario, it's the very common scenario that is also a nightmare, is the guy walks into your office, has 2 broken legs, is going to be in a wheelchair for 8 months and in rehabilitation for another 4 months after that, but is expected to make a full recovery. There's no pain and suffering component to the award. So when people go, well, what do you need pain and suffering for? Well, the problem is when the insurance company knows that your bare medicals have to be paid and maybe your lost wages, they're not very flexible, and they'll take a hard line on even those items. So if you're self-employed, all of a sudden, well, you didn't really make much money according to them. And if your medical bills were paid completely by some other health insurance and auto insurance, then they're not going to want to give you any money except maybe a little bit towards lost wages that you'll have a hard time proving. Or if you do have lost wages from your regular business or regular job, they may replace those. But if they take a negative stance on liability and say, well, we don't really think we have to cover this accident because we don't really think our guy was at fault, when you come see me and I take my third or my 25% or my 10% or whatever fee deal we work out of your recovery, you're not going to get your full wage replacement because there's no wiggle room there. At least if there's pain and suffering, the insurance company can go, okay, we'll give him his $40,000 in lost wages, and lawyer, you can take your third out of that, but we'll also give him another $40,000 for pain and suffering, and you can take your third out of that, and then you're made whole again. If you follow me.
Yeah. Okay, so the increased cost is, in your opinion, is worth the price of admission.
If you never have an accident where you're seriously injured, it won't matter. In other words, it's a bad risk, like all insurance. It's just a bad deal if you never use it. But we have a case right now. This guy got hit by a drunk driver, and he's pretty injured, but doesn't meet the serious bodily injury threshold. All his wages, wage replacement was paid for, and all his medical bills are paid for by another insurance policy. But he was laid up for a long time. They don't want to give him anything.
Oh, I see. Okay, well then, yeah, it's really not, it's not that much, I guess you could say.
Well, and here's where the choice comes in. You obviously have a decent driving record, because if you didn't, the differential would probably be huge. So we do see people, they're 26, they've had 2 DUIs, and they go to get insurance, and the difference between full and limited tort's like $500 a year.
Oh, wow.
So all of a sudden, now remind you that their regular insurance is still, gazillion dollars because of their terrible driving history. But you can see what I mean, where for some people, now I have actually seen where it's a $15, difference on, say, 6-month policy premium. And a guy says no to it, and you're like, for $15 you waive that. But they're not told by the insurance agent, because the insurance agent says it like this: if you're seriously injured, you'll be able to recover. So don't worry about it. This is only, it's to prevent these false lawsuits and minor things. That's how they explain it, and it doesn't make it sound like it's really a necessary thing.
Well, he also said that when they first implemented it in '91, that there was like 50-50, and then now it's more people are opting for the not to go with the full tort, like 65-35. So it was almost telling you that most of the people are not opting for the extra coverage.
Yeah, and I think that might be a function of the economy right now. People are running scared, so they're doing that. And again, it's like any other kind of insurance. I mean, I can not get fire insurance on my building, and I can live there for 35 years and be pleased as punches that I saved $1,000 a year on fire insurance. But the day the building starts on fire, even if the fire department puts it out pretty promptly, I'm still going to come out way at the bottom end of that swing.
Yeah.
Hence insurance.
Okay, I'm gonna get full tort.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Yep.
Bye. 540-0580. Carl Rominger answering your legal questions. Let's wade into the voter ID issue. Dan, you're on the air.
Yes, I have one quick question about the voter ID issue.
Yes.
I find it kind of ironic that these people are going to contest the voter ID law without. I mean, I can see the state going at them and contesting that they have no standing, because they're going to have to prove that they're first of all U.S. citizens, Pennsylvania citizens, and prove that their age and the fact that they have had no felonies.
Right.
So in order to pursue this, at least the way I see it as a non-legal expert, is that they are going to have to prove everything they're saying they can't prove. Am I losing my mind on that?
No, but I mean, I guess it comes down to how do you prove identity, and do you need an ID for it? So I guess I could imagine you bring the little old lady in from Philadelphia who says she doesn't have a driver's license, and then you bring in the head of the polls, and she says, yeah, that's Martha Smith, and she's been voting in our precinct for the last 72 years. And maybe a court can accept that that's who she is based on that eyewitness testimony, right?
Well, but I'm saying they're suing. So if the state does this right, it seems to me that the people that are the
well, that's what I mean. I mean, the person who's bringing the lawsuit, she calls, you challenge her standing, and the judge will have a hearing, and they bring in, the lady from the polls who says, that's Martha Smith, and she's been coming to my poll for, 72 years, and we all recognize her.
How does she know she's actually Martha Smith?
Well, but that's my point.
She's been coming 72 years.
How do you know? Wait a minute. How do you know that you're the baby that's on your birth certificate?
Well, at least I've got paperwork. I mean, how do I know my...
Well, right, you got paperwork, right? But, hey, one of the guys on the Glenn Beck show said it well. We are the least qualified to say who we are based on our own birth certificates.
But you see what I'm saying? I don't see how they can proceed in the legal system that we have. I understand the American Civil Liberties Union is going to sue anybody because under U.S. code, they're going to get paid by the federal government for every suit.
If they win.
Tax dollars are. Well, no, as I understand it, and I could fax you or email you the copy of the U.S. code that says they're going to get paid for expenses whether they win or not for bringing that suit against the United States government. Now, in this case, they're bringing it against the state of Pennsylvania, but they will be paid their legal expenses regardless of whether they win or lose.
Well, if we bring a constitutional claim and we win under 1983, we do get our legal fees, but I don't think you get them if you don't prevail. You just have to prevail, but you only have to prevail on a little bit of the case, not anything major, even just nominal damages. My concern is, and I'll tell you what my concern is, I really think sometimes these are fights about nothing. The flip side is there has to be a line to be drawn somewhere. So should you be required, for instance, to have a birth certificate that includes a raised seal, in order to vote?
Well, here's what's funny about this whole thing, Carl. And the United States federal government is going to sue certain states about this and say it's too restrictive. But as of sometime in the very near future, in order to be eligible for Social Security, you're going to have to go on direct deposit.
Right.
The federal government says, if you have to go on direct deposit, in order to open a bank account, you have to have a photo ID. So it's kind of like they're schizophrenic.
Oh, they're all well.
Well, excuse me?
I said, well, you just caught on to that?
Because of the terrorist situation and money laundering and the new laws that they put on the banks just to keep terrorist funding at bay, they've required you to have a photo ID to open a bank account, to open a post office box at the post office, to fly on an airplane, and then they're saying, yeah, but it's too restrictive to demand that somebody have a photo ID. You can't really function in this society anymore. Almost completely with I can't say you can't function. There are sects of the Amish community that may not have photo ID, although I believe most of them do. I haven't dealt with them, but you can almost not function in this society without a photo ID. And so to say that it's too restrictive to demand that you have to have a photo ID to vote. And again, back to my original point. These people are suing the state of Pennsylvania, so they have to be eligible voters. They have to prove that they're eligible voters in order to have standing, and that's my point. If they can prove they're eligible to vote in the state of Pennsylvania, what is the problem anyway?
Well, but I'm saying, but then again, that begs the question. So let me ask it this way: if I'm a 92-year-old widow who's voted in every election since I was 18 in the same precinct in Philadelphia, why do I need to show a photo ID?
Well, they're saying that they're going to make it easy enough for you to get these.
But I'm saying, but no, I'm just asking this. I'm just begging
It's possible for me to get the ID.
I'm just begging this question: can't everybody just look at them and go, "That's Martha. She's been coming here every year for 72 years."
I find it funny arguing with a lawyer, but if it's a 92-year-old woman and the TSA agent knows her, does she have to show photo ID?
Right. Well, that's a different question, right? Because get on a plane. Maybe she doesn't need to get on the plane, but to vote, she's exercising her rights of citizenship. Listen, I really could care. I don't have a poker in this fight,
I just think it's funny that it won't be. I'll be surprised. Let's put it this way: if it is thrown out, but I think it's a stain on our political system and our judicial system if it isn't thrown out, because these people should have to prove that they're eligible to vote to have standing. And once they prove that, where's their case?
Right, I understand what you're saying, and I'm saying maybe there's an alternative way to prove. Maybe there's an alternative way to prove who you are besides a photo ID. I got to imagine that somewhere, someplace, there's some guy running around America who nobody knows who he is and who's going to have difficulty proving who he is because somebody screwed up the paperwork when he was a kid and his parents never picked up on it. But that's going to be like 3 people, right?
Well, yeah, 3 people, and I think they miss 3 votes every election. So I don't.
Well, yeah. Well, here's the next thing. Let's talk about this. So I go vote the other day, right? And it's this computer, and I go hit all these buttons, and I go, now how do I know at the end of the day that what I put in this machine is? Oh, well, we verify you verify it? Okay, whatever.
That's why I always do the paper ballot. At least if there's some question. Well, I know they run it through a machine that tabulates it. I realize that. Right. But if there's ever any question, it is one.
At least there's something to look at. I mean, you're telling me they're hacking into the Pentagon, they're hacking into every freaking credit card company to the tunes of billions of dollars a year, and nobody's ever going to hack the voting machines? How stupid am I? All right. I got to let you go.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, take care. Go to break. I just here ordering some uniforms for the Star Trek convention. 540-0580. Bruce, you've been hanging a long time. What's going on, my friend?
Yes. Carl?
Yes.
My question is I would like to change the name on my deed for the house so that my younger brother could inherit the house without having to go through probate. Is that possible, and how would I go about that?
What you want to do basically is add him to your deed, right?
Add his name to the deed.
Yeah, and make him a owner with joint right of survivorship. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, theoretically, if something happens to you, it passes to him without going through your estate.
I see. Okay.
And there's a $5 million a year gift tax exemption this year. So if you did it this year and the house is worth less than $5 million, you're not going to have any problems with gift tax.
2 years ago, my house was assessed at $70,000, and now it's down to $44,000.
Welcome to real estate in central Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I only throw that $5 million. Yeah, that is, for our very wealthy listeners, all 3 of you. It's very important that you remember that this is the gift tax sunset here is going to disappear. So you need to think about what you're going to do because Congress is going to need to shake the money out of the trees like never before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, my friend.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you. Vinny Manfredo, thanks for joining us.
No problem. How's it going, Carl?
Good, man. If you guys don't know, Vinny's one of the lawyers in our office, so I always ask these guys to come on and help me out because I get slow with these things. Anything exciting going on, Vinny? Been up to any hijinks?
No, normal work going on. Nothing exciting.
I won't tell anybody you're in Vegas, so for a few days.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I want to keep that down low. But if anybody wants to call and ask him what he did, I would like to know as well. Mark, do you have a question for me and Vinny? Mark?
Hello? Yes?
Yes, what's your question?
I have a question about a traffic ticket, okay, I received for driving through Middletown, okay, and it was the cop never stopped, gave me a stop notice, and it was through an Amtrak policeman, which he notified the cop, and the cop notified the JP, which issued the ticket.
Right.
And at the same time as a violation, I have a statement from Giant saying I was in Giant purchasing groceries. So I'm fighting the ticket. Are you saying it's not worthwhile fighting it? Or are you saying
I'm saying it's very worthwhile to fight it. You have what we call an alibi defense, my friend.
Okay. So earlier you were saying that fighting them, if it didn't involve points, you should pay the fine.
Well, sometimes to avoid points, but if you have an airtight defense like an alibi, rather than your word versus here's a typical scenario, and Vinny will vouch for this, right? The guy goes, I was only going 62, and the cop says you were going 72. The judge is going to have to decide who to believe, but if the police officer offers you a 5 mile over for no points, you're probably better off to take it because the judge is probably going to be more likely to side with the police officer.
Right.
If you have an alibi defense and you have a real alibi that's someone you can prove you were somewhere else, then you're probably not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. You're also not guilty in fact. So you're going to probably be acquitted. So your strength of your case is so great that it wouldn't make sense to plead it out.
Okay.
You got me?
All right.
Now,
Yep.
Vinny, can you think of what his problem's going to be when he shows up with his note from Giant?
Honestly, I really had a tough time hearing the question.
Okay, yeah, here's what he said. He says he has I know sometimes when you're on the call line, this happens when I'm with Durgan, you can hardly hear some of the callers. I like to use that as my backup, too, if I ever screw something up. But here's he says, Vinny, that he has an alibi, basically. He has a note from Giant that says he was at the Giant when this traffic offense was going on.
Gotcha. I mean, he'll probably have to bring someone in to testify to that, not just the note.
Yeah, because you can't cross-examine a note, okay? You got that, Mark?
Oh, it's the receipt.
Oh, it's the receipt. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, how do we know that you got the receipt from the Giant?
Well, it matches my Mac card.
Oh, interesting. Anybody else have access to your Mac card?
No.
See, I'm running the cross-exam here. Are you telling me nobody else can use your Mac card? Is that what you're saying? You calling me a liar? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a good defense. I mean, he'll have to...
I think he can win it.
Testify. Yeah, definitely.
Mark, if you plead guilty, I'm going to smack you. All right? Get in there and win it.
All right.
Here's the good news. If you lose it in front of the district judge or the district magistrate, you have 30 days to appeal it and take it up to the Court of Common Pleas. And if you can't get an acquittal there, move to Canada.
All right. I got one question to ask you before you go.
All right.
Is it legal like that for an Amtrak policeman to say that he witnessed something?
It's legal for anybody to tell a police officer they witnessed anything and for the officer to file charges on information received.
Okay.
Now, he might not have had the power to detain you as an Amtrak officer, let's say, had you just been walking down the street. That's a whole separate question. But just like me, if I saw you doing a violation, I could call the state police because I have nothing better to do than call in and say you're going 6 miles over the speed limit.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Good luck. Oh, boy. What do you think of that, Vinny?
No, that sounded like a good case. I mean, it's going to come down to whether or not the judge believes no one else could use his card.
Yeah, and, as a general rule, I mean, I would think, if he's married, there might be, the oh, come on, you probably let your wife use it sort of deal. But for the most part, I think there's a presumption, right, that if it's your credit card or your Mac card, that the burden probably shifts to the government at that point to kind of come up with some evidence that you're not the only, for purpose of reasonable doubt, to show access or authorization to some third party.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
I would think. But then again, I've seen a few people wrongfully convicted recently, so who knows? 540-0580. Gene, you're on the air. Gene.
Yes. My question is, I am involved in a conspiracy in the town I live in with my husband and some members of law enforcement. And recently I found out my husband is involved in organized crime on a very high level. He's using heavy metals to poison me and my daughter. And because he works on a very high level with all these law enforcement agencies, he's using his connections to block every opportunity I'm trying to save my daughter. And recently, I was being tormented. They were going to murder someone in my family, like 2 weeks before. And they did murder my brother-in-law. And when I went to the funeral at the house, I saw all the chemicals. I have a corroborating home. His home has the chemicals that's being used in my home that's being sprayed up also.
Well,
my husband is using inhalation and dermal poisoning.
Well, Gina, here's what I tell everybody that calls who has is the victim of a conspiracy or at least you're going to have to keep trying to get to your local law enforcement and prove that to them somehow, and maybe your county district attorney's office, maybe the FBI. But we can't on this show. We don't have the ability to.
My husband works with all these people,
Understand.
And he has destroyed my credibility by saying, and I had no idea he was doing this before, and they listen to your program every week because they know I'm listening and I'll be calling in to you, so they're listening in right now. I bet you $1 million they are, and it involves the local law enforcement.
What county are we talking about?
I beg your pardon?
What county?
Can I not say that? Just for my.
Gee, I got to move on though because I can't. There's nothing I can do to help you in a case like this. So good luck. 540-0580. John, you're on with Carl and Vinny.
Hey, how you doing, Carl?
Good. What's going on?
I feel bad calling you with my problem.
Well, and here, listen. I'm not going to say that nothing's going on there, but in my experience, when people are victims of large conspiracies involving large numbers of people that nobody can prove. I mean, if you're being poisoned with heavy metals, just go find a doctor and have him do a lab result. And if you've got cadmium out the wazoo, then we'll know something's up.
Yeah. Okay, here's my problem.
Yeah.
Went to one of the local optometry places. Had a special.
Yeah.
And the bill was supposed to be under $100.
Okay.
My wife comes home with the bill, and it's $236. So naturally, I went up and had them explain it to me. They said since she used the insurance, she can't get the special.
Right.
It doesn't say that on the advertisement. It doesn't say that when you see it on TV. They don't tell you that when you're signing out. I was wondering, can they do that?
Well, we call that the bait and switch, right? You come in thinking you're going to get one deal, and then you leave with a different program.
Well, they charge you for scratch guard and the warranty and this, and that's all added on to the special.
Right.
I understand that. But, I mean, it wound up being almost 4 times what the advertisement was, which didn't make any sense to me. So they can do that?
Well, I mean, let me put it this way. Maybe, maybe not. There may be a consumer protection issue, and that's why we say like bait and switch, or these are techniques. There's advertising techniques where you walk in and end up with a $1,000 bill, but based on all the advertising, you thought you're going to come out there with a $200 bill. Or you come in for the advertised special, but magically they don't have that one, so they sell you a different model but doesn't have the special, and they pressure you into it. So there are some consumer protection type issues that can be implicated. But we'd have to be really careful about the disclosures that they made, and we'd have to look at it factually. And the next question is what her damages would be. She may be entitled to her attorney's fees as part of that. So it may be something somebody would sue for. The flip side is, for a couple $100, I'm not sure if you want to tie up all your time and energy in a lawsuit either.
All right. Okay, let me ask you one more quick question.
Yeah.
If a township has an ordinance and it says minimum frontage, does that mean that frontage stops at that point?
The minimum frontage in the ordinance is the minimum amount of frontage you have to have on a roadway, right?
Right.
So if you don't have that much, you probably can't have a lot.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that once you get past that minimum frontage, are you now in the back?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Okay.
I got to go to break. Hold on. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here. Got Vinny Manfredo from my office with you. Vinny, can you hang for a little bit longer?
Yeah, I'll be here for till the next break or so.
Okay. John, you're talking about frontage?
Yeah, I'll give you the exact language. It's only it said front yard. Any fence located in the required minimum front yard of a lot of the residential district shall. So does that mean that front yard stops?
In other words, it says a minimum. It just says any fence located in a lot with a minimum size, right?
Well, my neighbor's trying to put up a fence,
and
they're saying she's got 2 front yards.
Okay.
And so she's trying to go in from that minimum to put it around her backyard.
And they're saying no?
Yeah.
So she needs to request a variance from the zoning regulation.
Yeah, but they said that the type fence she wants to put up is not allowed.
Right, so she would have to request a variance.
Okay.
And maybe they would allow it, maybe they won't.
Okay. Did you hear Ben Franklin forgot his silhouette when he went to vote the first time? Have a good day.
Take care. Yeah, I like that. 540-0580. Kevin, sorry to hear that. What happened?
A year ago, my son was fired from the prison. He was a guard there, and it was a year. They denied him unemployment. It appeared like, oh boy, he really did something wrong, and they arbitrated unemployment, and the unemployment arbitrator said there's no case here. They granted him unemployment. Okay, so he's been off a year. Now the union really finally got up to the date came for his time in court, and there was no court battle whatsoever. They just gave him his job back. Give him his job back after a year. Now, simply I wonder, there was losses all throughout the year. Is there such a thing as taking the county or the prison to court?
Well,
for wrongful firing or anything like that, or is it a waste of time?
No, you may have a claim. You may have a claim. It's a little bit outside my area of expertise. I know, Vinny, you don't do much of that, do you?
I don't really get into the wrongful termination part of it against the prison or anything like that. I haven't dealt with that.
I know you do all the 1983s. I think Drew Deo in our office has, however, done a number of wrongful termination cases and discrimination employment type issues. So you might want to talk with him off the air, Kevin.
Okay.
The office number is 241-6070. 241-6070.
Is it the association you associate with?
Yeah, my office.
Oh, your office. Okay.
Yeah, 717-241-6070, or just go to romingerlaw.com.
Very good.
Thank
you, Carl.
Thanks. Tim, you're on with Carl and Vinny. Hey, Tim.
Hey, how you doing, Carl?
Good. What's going on?
My daughter was involved in a minor accident the other day. Actually, Thursday, I think it was. And guy backed into her out of the gas pumps. Now, we called the police. Police came out. They said they normally don't come out. And Giant will not release the surveillance tapes, which, with the angle of the cameras, is obvious they caught it without police interdiction. But the police won't do an investigation because it's both private property.
So somebody hit your daughter?
Yeah, she hit my daughter's vehicle, backed into it.
And now have you guys brought a claim through the insurance company?
Yes.
And is that going to resolve it, or is there more to it than that?
We don't know. We just opened up the claim, like I said, on Thursday.
Uh-huh.
And so I don't know where it's going yet, but we do have a witness from the Giant parking lot. The gas station attendant witnessed it. We got her name and everything, turned that over to the insurance company. And the guy that backed into her, he acted like it was no big deal, started laughing it off, and then he got a driver that was next to him and said, I got this guy. He says, you pulled forward.
Well, the answer is if we were getting involved in it, what we would do is we would write a letter, and you might want to do this, is write a letter to Giant saying that you need that tape for litigation purposes, and that you're asking that they preserve it.
Okay.
And go ahead.
You're going to want to do that as soon as possible, because they'll give you an excuse later on that they clean their systems every 21 days or something, and they don't have it at a certain point.
Okay. Now, is it? Do the police have a responsibility to come out and investigate an accident on private property like that?
Well, I think they still could. Yeah, I think it sounds like they were just trying to get out of having to do it.
That was my take on it too.
But I don't think the police have to investigate anything. I'm not sure. Failures to act by the police really aren't actionable.
Okay.
If that makes sense. They might be. It's a good thing to go to the chief or the mayor about.
Okay.
All right, my friend.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good luck, Tim.
Thanks.
Yeah, that always stinks, little fender bender like that. And that's the other thing, and Vinny, I think you highlighted this. People need to know, if you got a video, get it. Hey, Vinny, thanks for being with us.
Okay, thanks a lot. See you.
All right. 540-0580. We'll be back for the next hour answering your questions, so hang around. If you need to hire us in the meantime, go to RomingerLaw.com, or you can call the office 241-6070. But I'll be back for the next hour to answer your legal questions here live on the air. See you in a few.